and welcome to Yin Yoga with Rosie. So this morning I would like to do some slightly extended postures, extended in length of time that is. So we're going to be doing each pose for about 5 minutes. If at any point in the pose it just feels it's a bit too much, come out of it and into maybe a comfortable child pose or something, just bending your knees into your chest or whatever feels appropriate for you from the pose that we've been in previously. So it's going to be a nice restful class, longer held poses, but in a nice comfortable position. So we're going to start with a reclining butterfly pose. So I've set some props up ready on my mat, which you may be able to see here. I've got a couple of cushions to lie myself back onto, and I've just rolled up a spare yoga mat. You could use that or a bolster or something under your legs. And that just, if you find that your thighs and your groin are quite tight, then that will let you support there. So get yourself set up and ready, and then I'll start the timer going and we'll get ourselves into a nice comfortable pose. So let's come into sitting at your bottom in fairly close to the cushions here. Feet want to be soles of the feet together, and then you can just let the knees rest onto the bolster or the mat. And then you're just going to gently lie yourself down onto your back. If you need it, you might want to bring another pillow to rest the head onto here. And then just allow the arms to open out to the side, just let the shoulders comfortably settle. And then just release through the abdomen, release through the heart center, letting the throat open up, keeping the mouth nice and relaxed. So just let there be a little space between the teeth to prevent you from clenching up the jaw, which is what we sometimes do when we're feeling a bit stressed, and then sometimes it just becomes a habit. And then we find that we're constantly grinding our teeth, sending tension through the neck. So just consciously choose to keep a little bit of space between the teeth. And this will keep the jaw nice and relaxed. And then the tongue will just drop naturally into the lower jaw. And if you feel comfortable, just allowing the eyes to gently close so you're not distracted by any external sights. And allowing yourself just to submit to the pose, allowing the opening to take place. Noticing the rise and fall of your abdomen with your inhalation and your exhalation. Bringing yourself to a place of stillness and calm. that's the end of the 5 minutes. Just gently bringing awareness back into your body. Maybe just stretch the arms up above your head, stretching out the legs. Make each movement very, very slow and conscious movement. So we're going to slowly come up onto our elbows and then slowly transitioning up into a sitting position. And then from here we're going to come into a forward fold, a half butterfly pose. So I'll face onto you here. So just stretching out the right leg in front of you, tucking the left leg in. You might need to bring a cushion to rest underneath this thigh. If you find your knees drop fairly high, you might even need a couple of cushions to support you here. And then perhaps you may need a couple of cushions in front of you to rest yourself forwards onto. I'll set the timer again here for another 5 minutes. So bringing yourself into whatever is the most comfortable position that you feel that you need with the props available to you, and just letting yourself rest forwards. Keep that extended leg nice and loose here, so you don't need to flex the foot at all. And just let the head release down. If you find there's tension coming through the neck, perhaps just making a little bit of movement side to side, releasing out any tension from the neck. Just finding the right pose for you. So it might not look the same as exactly what I'm doing. Perhaps you're a lot higher up here. That might be as far as your back can take it. Maybe your head is all the way flat to the floor. I can't demonstrate that one for you, but I'm just kind of halfway here. No right, no wrong. There's only wrong if you're feeling any pain. So make sure there's no pain in the lower back. There may be a slight stretching sensation through the lower back. That's what I would call a good pain or a good sensation, but any kind of sharp pain is not a good sign. So you would need to modify where you are in the pose to make yourself into a safe and harm-free pose. So letting the head release forwards, perhaps after a minute or so, we find that there's a little bit more space becomes available as any muscular tension has released out. Again, trying to keep that space between the teeth to keep the jaw nice and relaxed. Keeping the soles of the feet soft so we're not sending tension through the legs. Keeping the elbows slightly bent. If your arms are able to rest onto the cushions, then that will help to prevent tension moving up through your shoulders. So just keep conscious of what's going on in your body. In these longer held poses, there's a good chance that the mind will go wandering off on its own little train of thought. So once you catch that happening, just gently bring it back to where you are on your mat, in this pose, in this present moment. about 1 more minute remaining in the pose. So perhaps you want to take it a little bit deeper, perhaps you need to back off a little. Just being very conscious of your own body, getting that feedback from the system. Only you know what you're experiencing here. Let that be your guide, your inner wisdom. And slowly coming out of the pose, walking the hands in. And then just let the bent leg release out for a moment. A little bit of a shake out here. And then we're going to take it to the other side. So tucking the other leg in. Bringing your cushions ready to rest onto. If you need to, bringing the cushion to support underneath the thigh of the bent leg. And again, resting yourself forwards, keeping the neck nice and loose. Probably not coming into the full forward fold just yet. Giving the body time to release through the hamstring, releasing through the muscular tension. Takes maybe a minute or so. And then after that, we're working into the deeper tissue, releasing out any knots through the connective tissue, which is how we sometimes find blockages of energy, preventing the flow of energy through the body, which can then cause us pain and eventually disease. So maybe when you're ready, releasing a little bit deeper into the pose. Again, try to consciously keep the neck and the shoulders nice and loose and relaxed. Might bend through the elbows. If you've got the elbows out straight here, you'll find there's a lot of tension coming into the shoulders. So just let that be nice and soft. Keeping the muscles in the face nice and relaxed. I like to practice yin with my eyes closed because that helps me to then focus on what I'm feeling internally. About 2 minutes to go in the pose. Perhaps space to release a little bit deeper. Again, tuning into your body, noticing where you feel any stretching sensation, noting if that feels good or bad. Making any modifications if you're feeling sharp pain anywhere. Or maybe just noticing that the breath becomes a little bit more laboured when there's too much stress on the body. So if you find the breath has shortened, just come to a point where you can just breathe naturally, slowly, not forcing the breath, just allowing it to flow in and out. Coming to the end of the pose. So just walking the hands slowly back in, making that gentle transition back to the upright. And again, just release the legs out in front of you, maybe a little stretch through the legs. And then, because we've been in a forward bend, we're going to come into a back bend now. So this is on our tummies. So adjusting yourself onto your tummy. A couple of cushions at the ready here. So this is a Sphynx pose, resting the elbows onto the mat. And just keep the gaze forwards, or the head into a nice neutral position here. And you might just want to wiggle the hips a little bit to let the pelvis settle into the mat. Just experiment a bit with how wide apart your feet are, as to where you feel a nice compression through the spine. It's not going to be the same point for everyone. And again, consciously keeping that gap between the teeth so you don't send tension through the jaw. If you notice tension in the neck, again, just a little bit of movement of the head. But just make sure any movement that you make is through conscious thought, not just fidgeting around, trying to bring yourself to a point of stillness. And it's in that stillness that the magic starts to happen, the healing takes place, the mind settles from all that constant chatter. And that's when we start to experience the bliss of yoga. there's about 2 minutes remaining in the pose, so if you're happy to stay like this, just keep in this pose. If it's feeling a bit too much on your back, then just let the elbows open out to the side and rest the head down to the floor. But if you're comfortable staying here, the longer we can maintain the pose, the more the body is able to release out those blockages, allowing energy to flow freely, particularly up and down the spine, which is the conduit for all the nerve messages going from your brain through to all the organs of the body and the limbs. And when there's constriction there, that's when you might find that the body doesn't function as it's designed to. So you'll notice in Yin there's a lot of alternate forward and backward bends to keep the spine supple, to keep it allowing that energy to flow nice and freely. So if you're still on your elbows, just letting the elbows open out to the side, gently resting the head down, cheek resting onto the mat, releasing out through the shoulders. And then for the next pose, we're going to work on the shoulders a little. So for this one, you want to have a cushion ready in front of you, and then stretching out through the left hand, sliding the right arm all the way underneath, and then just letting the head release onto the cushion. So make sure that you're not allowing the head, I think I need another one here, not letting the head drop down to the floor, because then you'll create too much tension through the neck. So the neck just wants to be nice and straight here. And just, again, maybe closing your eyes. And where you maybe feel it here is through the outside of the, in my case, the right arm, the one that's underneath. The weight of the body gently pressing through that shoulder. Allowing the outer edges of the shoulder to open up. We're about halfway through the pose now. Again, just noticing any sensations going on in the body. Noticing where your mind is right now. Is it with you in your body? Or has it gone off to some distant place? So guiding it back, if that's the case. Connecting mind back to the body. Just about 10 more seconds remaining in the pose now. And slowly transitioning back into the centre. And just move the cushions out of the way, interlink your fingers, and then just let your forehead rest onto the fingertips so the backs of the hands are against the mat. Just resting the head down, releasing through the shoulders here. And then we're going to come into the pose on the other side. So setting yourself up again, the cushions ready, and then stretching the other arm out in front of you, and this arm going underneath. Resting the head down, finding stillness in the pose. we have about 2 minutes remaining in the pose. Perhaps if there's space, extending a little bit further out through the fingertips. And about half a minute remaining now. Slowly transitioning out of the pose, and just moving your cushions out of the way, interlinking your fingers. This time bring the other index finger on top, so it won't feel quite as natural a way of doing it. And let the head rest back onto the fingertips. Releasing through that shoulder that's been compressed for the last 5 minutes. And then we're going to slowly transition up onto all fours, so bringing the hands under the shoulders. Slowly bring yourself up. You might feel like making a little bit of movement here, perhaps coming through some circles around one way, and then taking it back around the other way. And then we're going to come into a frog pose here. So take the knees out to about the width of the mat, toes coming in together. And then you want to bring your cushions or your bolster in front of you. And then we're just going to release forwards, stretching out through the shoulders. Just let the head rest to one side. Feel that settling through the hips, releasing through the spine and the shoulders. Allowing yourself to melt into the pose. And some of you, perhaps the bottom doesn't release all the way down to the heels, so if that's the case, then either a rolled up mat or another bolster resting to just prop you up so your bottom is rested onto something, it's not just floating up in the air there. So, making yourself comfortable in the pose. And that then enables the body to release. If we are experiencing discomfort,
then the body will naturally tense up because it's fearful of the harm that's going to happen. So we need to just reassure ourselves that there's going to be no harm, we're in a safe space, we're not going to do anything harmful to the body. So by giving it those props, that reassurance will just allow any muscular tension to release out. Maybe turning the head to the other side for the second half of the pose. Keep the neck equally balanced on both sides. One more minute remaining here. You bring yourself back onto all fours, bringing the knees under the hips. And then I think here it'd be nice to do a few cat stretches, releasing through the spine, inhaling as you look up, exhaling as you release down. A couple more times. Keeping all those discs in between the vertebrae nice and healthy. And then the next pose is going to be a swan pose. So to do this one, you might need some props at the ready perhaps. And then we're going to bring the right knee up behind the right wrist here. And then perhaps you'll need a little bit of help from the other hand to just slide the foot out to the side. And then releasing the left leg back. Now you might find that the right hip's up quite, or the right buttock is up quite high here. So perhaps you need to bring some cushions to support under here. Otherwise, there's a tendency for you to flop over to the side, and then that's not great for your back because your spine's out of alignment. So try to bring whatever props you need to keep the spine in a nice straight line here. And then we're going to release down into sleeping swan. So you might need cushions in front of you here, releasing the elbows down, maybe bringing the head onto your cushions. If it's comfortable for you, you might be able to bring the head all the way to rest on the floor. So just finding whatever feels most appropriate for you. And you should start to feel a nice release here through the pelvis. This pose is particularly good if you have any lower back issues. We're coming to about halfway through the pose here. About 1 more minute remaining now. If it's feeling a bit too intense, then you're welcome to bring yourself into a child pose and rest for the final minute in child pose. If you're feeling good in the sleeping swan, then we'll keep going here for a little bit longer. Quite an intense pose for some people. So if you do need to transition out of it, don't feel that you're somehow failing. Just recognize that that's what your body needs right now. coming towards the end of the pose. So transitioning back up onto all fours, bringing the hands in, sliding the knee back under the hips. And from here it's nice just to come into a gentle downward dog, so tucking the toes under, walking out, right heel, left heel a few times. Make sure your feet are on the mat so you're not going to slip off. And then gently releasing back down to your knees. And then we prepare for our swan pose on the other side. So getting your props and cushions at the ready, bringing the left knee up behind the wrist. Take the foot off to the outside, opposite side of the mat, and then sliding the right knee back, bringing in your cushions to support underneath the hips. So starting upright to begin with, that just helps to get the spine into good alignment here. And then after half a minute or so, then we take it forwards into the sleeping version or reclining version of the pose, resting the head down onto the pillows, maybe all the way to the floor. Just being aware that perhaps one side of the body might feel quite different to the other. So not making any judgment or criticism of your body, just noticing that we're never equally the same left and right side. That's just about halfway through the pose. So checking in how you're feeling, if you're comfortable to keep going, if you need to make any adjustments, or perhaps coming into child pose for the remainder. Coming towards the end of the pose now. And walking the hands back underneath the shoulders, bringing the knees under the hips. And just coming into your downward dog again, just to release out through the legs here. And then for our final pose, we're going to come into a nice, relaxing Savasana pose, or the corpse pose, where we find final stillness and peace. So coming onto your backs, now you might need some props here again, perhaps if there's anything going on with the lower back again, perhaps resting rolled up mat or a bolster underneath the legs. Perhaps you might like something to support under the spine as you release onto the floor. Maybe you don't need that and you're happy just to release the spine all the way down. Letting the arms open out to the side, palms facing upwards. And just feel here that final yielding, releasing, surrendering. Feeling the breath flowing through your nostrils. Noticing the rise and fall of the abdomen, the inhalation and the exhalation. Feeling that stillness and peace throughout your whole body. So we've had a nice full hour to release tension from the body. But if it's been built up over a couple of weeks, perhaps, since you've last done a yin practice, perhaps there's still a little bit of tension remaining in certain areas. So mentally scan through your body, just seeing if there's any vestiges of tension that are still remaining. And just allow the mind and the breath to come to that part of your body. And then on your next exhalation, just feel that tension release and dissipate away on the exhalation. just starting to bring the body back to life by running the thumbs along the fingertips, maybe flexing through the feet, the toes, circling the wrists and the ankles, and then round the other way. And then reaching the arms overhead, and then letting the left arm release onto the chest, left hand on the chest, right arm stretched overhead. And you're just going to roll yourself over onto your right side, just resting into a recovery position, bending the knees slightly, head resting onto the arm. And then very slowly coming up to sitting, taking a moment here, thanking yourself for taking the time today to bring healing and harmony to your mind and your body. Thank you for sharing the practice with me. Namaste.